Randall was Andy's monster. You don't notice the swap until you stare at the closet door. In Monsters Inc., Randall isn't just a rival, he's a specialist at slipping into bedrooms. The theory says one door he worked was Andy's. Watch Randall move. Quiet, predatory, always staying just outside the light. Now jump to Toy Story. Andy's fear isn't random, it's patterned. He keeps the same guards on his bed, checks the room before sleeping, and clings to comfort objects like security alarms. Here's the evidence trail. Monsters enter through doors. Andy's would come through a closet. Randall's gift is camouflage. Kids describe something in the dark. The company runs on screams. A high-strung kid is premium fuel. Andy's toys freeze when adults enter, but they move the second Andy is alone, like they're reacting to a threat he can't see. Even Boo crosses worlds with a toy in her hands. Proof toys travel with children. The pivot is simple. Toy Story isn't about toys hiding from humans. It's about toys hiding humans from monsters. Rewatch Andy's room like a bunker, and Woody stops being possessive. He's the Night Watch, because he knows who's on the other side of that door. All night. Wally's secret villain. Wally looks like a love story, but the real villain is already on screen. Otto. He's not a helpful autopilot. He's a warden. The theory says the axiom was never meant to go home. Watch Otto. He hides the plant, locks the captain out, and reroutes the ship the moment a human shows agency. That's not a glitch, that's enforcement. By and Large launches the axiom with a buried directive: never return to Earth. If the ship comes back, the company loses control and the myth that leaving was necessary. So Otto keeps humanity docile. He feeds them comfort, drains their strength, and replaces curiosity with screens. Even the captain's awakening plays like a jailbreak. One man learning he has legs. Proof stack. Otto's eye turns red like a status light. He restrains the captain the way a guard restrains a prisoner. He tries to crush the plant, because the plant is evidence. Then the pivot lands. The humans aren't lazy. They were engineered to be helpless because helpless people don't leave. Rewatch it, and Wall-E isn't the last robot. He's the first rebel, dragging a species back into the world while Otto fights to keep them asleep. Pixar has one master villain. Pixar villains look different, but the theory says they all answer to the same shadow. By and Large. Not a character, a machine. BNL is the logo that keeps resurfacing like a fingerprint. On Wall-E's trash empire, on Toy Story packaging, on background brands that own the world. If you spot it once, you'll start spotting it everywhere because that's the point. BNL doesn't need a mustache twirler. It uses incentives. It rewards neglect, sells convenience, and lets people trade agency for comfort. That's why the bad guy in each film feels different. Sid is chaos, Stinky Pete is bitterness, Otto is control, but they're all reacting inside a world already bent toward consumption. Here's the evidence trail. BNL builds the axiom, then locks humanity into dependency. It normalizes talking products, then acts shocked when objects develop desires. It fills landscapes with branded clutter, then calls it progress. Then the pivot hits. Pixar's real antagonist isn't a person, it's a system that turns everyone into a function. Rewatch the films with BNL as the puppet master and the stories get darker. The heroes aren't defeating one villain. They're fighting the same invisible rulebook, wearing a new mask every time. The axiom's dark secret. The axiom feels safe, but its food system is the darkest part. Everyone eats, nobody farms, and nothing on that ship looks alive. The theory says the axiom's meals are recycled humans, not horror gore, sterile cannibalism, hidden behind a buffet screen. Start with the math. The ship has been running for centuries. Where are the animals? Where are the crops? Where is the soil? We see consumption and zero production. All we get is processed mush, delivered like printer ink. Now watch the language. Everything is recycling. Everything is efficient. Everything is contained. In a closed system, waste doesn't vanish. It becomes the next input. That's the evidence trail. The axiom has compactors, trash management, and a culture built around never leaving the loop. Even bodies would be handled like anything else. Sanitized, ground down, repackaged, labeled as convenience. The pivot lands when the plant appears. A seedling causes panic, lockdown, and sabotage because it threatens the supply chain. Real food means the loop breaks, and the secret becomes obvious. Rewatch the buffet and it stops being futuristic. It looks like a cover story. Humanity didn't just get lazy, it ate the future to stay fed one more day. Toy Story 0, Andy's dad. Woody doesn't belong in Andy's room, that's the clue. He's a vintage pull-string cowboy with a faded voice box sitting next to shiny 90s plastic. The theory says Woody was never Andy's first toy. He was Andy's dad's. Before Andy existed, there was another kid who loved that same sheriff, wore him down, and took him everywhere. Then something happened, illness, an accident, a disappearance. Pixar never shows. Andy's mom keeps the toy, not as a hand-me-down, but as a memorial. Years later, she finally gives Woody to Andy, hoping a new child can carry carry the weight. Now the evidence trail. Woody's design screams earlier era. Andy owns almost no other old toys, like this one survived on purpose. The dad is missing from every scene and every family frame in the house. And Woody's jealousy makes more sense if he's terrified of being replaced again by another kid, another life, another loss. Here's the pivot. Toy Story isn't just about growing up. It's about a family rebuilding after grief, using toys as inheritance. Even if Pixar never confirms it, the rewatch changes. Woody isn't Andy's toy with a past. He's a past that refuses to leave. Andy's mom owned. Jesse's montage is heartbreak, but one prop turns it into a loop. The theory says Emily, the girl who owned Jesse, grows up to become Andy's mom. That means Jessie isn't abandoned once. She's abandoned by the same family twice. Watch the details. Emily's cowgirl hat has a red brim and white trim. Years later, photos show Andy's mom wearing a hat with the same shape and style, like a childhood favorite she never let go. Now, connect the household. Woody is an older era toy, too specific to be a random purchase in the 90s. He feels like something that was kept, stored, saved. So the timeline fits. Emily grows up, boxes Jessie away, forgets her, then keeps other toys as keepsakes. When Andy arrives, she passes down what survived, repeating the pattern without naming it. That's the evidence trail. Design continuity, heirloom vibes, and the way Andy's mom talks about donating toys like she's rehearsed the pain. Then the pivot. Toy Story 2 isn't just Jesse's trauma, it's a family trauma inherited. On rewatch, the final goodbye hits differently. It isn't only Andy growing up, it's his mom watching history repeat and pretending she doesn't recognize the hat. The Pixar blooper. Theory: Pixar's funniest secret might be its darkest, the bloopers. The theory says those outtakes aren't jokes, they're canon. Pixar characters are actors and every movie is a production inside the same studio world. That's why toys talk, cars emote, and monsters hit marks like professionals. Look at how the bloopers are framed. Clapperboards, flubbed lines, crew voices, retakes. It's the language of a set, not a fantasy universe. Now the evidence trail. Characters reappear across films because they're cast, not reincarnated. Different physics don't matter because they're genres, not realities. Even emotional moments play, like scripted beats, perfect timing, perfect camera placement, perfect lighting because someone is filming them. Then the pivot lands. If Pixar's worlds are productions, the happy endings become contracts. Your favorite character survives because the studio needs them for the next project, and the darker implication flips everything. Tragedies aren't accidents, they're scenes. The pain is real to the characters, but it's real inside a machine designed to sell stories. Rewatch any Pixar climax and you'll feel it. Everyone hits their mark. Everyone delivers the line. And when the credits roll, the universe doesn't end. It wraps for the day, waiting for the next take again. The complete Pixar theory. Here's the theory that swallows every other Pixar theory. It's all one timeline, not Easter eggs. It begins in Brave, where a witch bends nature and makes minds spill into animals and objects. That magic doesn't fade. It mutates into science. Centuries later, consciousness leaks into toys in Toy Story, objects learning to feel in secret. Then the planet collapses. Wall-E roams a trash planet, and his loneliness teaches machines empathy. As humans disappear, the world shifts into cars, metal inheriting empty roads. Life survives in smaller forms, becoming A Bug's Life, then evolving into Monsters, Inc., where creatures build doors to harvest energy. Now the loop closes. Boo grows up obsessed with doors, chasing Sully across time. She becomes the witch in Brave, carving his image into her cabin walls as a signal back to childhood. That's the evidence trail. Magic to tech, tech to monsters, monsters back to magic. The pivot is brutal. Pixar endings aren't endings. They're resets in a cycle that keeps consuming itself. Rewatch the happy films with that in mind, and the world feels haunted. Somewhere off screen, another new toy is waking up because the loop needs a beginning every time.